That's Anne right there.
Hi, Anne.
Hi, Lucy. Hi, Ellis. Hi, Mohammed.
Yeah.
I must look here to look like I'm looking at them, right? Very confusing.
Yeah.
Hi, it's lovely to see you all. Hey.
Good to see you too, madam.
So the little.
Oh, hi, Linda. You're the only one I haven't said hi to.
Hi, and good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. So guys, the working house rules are until we call on you to speak.
Barbara.
That way, we don't have any interference, but we should be able to start in the next 1 minute.
Raymond, can I make a request? Can you call on me last? My baby just woke up and I need to tend to her. Thank you.
All right. No doubt, definitely. So yeah, we will close out at 10:40. So we'll steer the conversation and make sure by 10. A good morning and welcome to the second day of the annual Leaders Gathering with the Leo Africa Institute. My name is Raymond Mujuni. I will be your host today for the panel that discusses beyond the, of course, COVID-19, which is the pandemic we're currently facing as the globe has upended many of us in ways unspeakable. Many people have anxieties have been drummed up. We'd like to just have a conversation about what happens beyond the crisis, what are the opportunities in the crisis, but also what leadership lessons can we learn during this crisis. And of course, I have the singular pleasure who is our keynote speaker for today to start us off.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. It is both an honor and a pleasure to be here. It's such a privilege to be talking to you this morning. So thank you very much for having me. I'd like to start by congratulating Leo Africa Institute on having such an impactful annual leaders conference. Not only is it timely, but it's relevant and important. I cannot think of a better time for us to have a conversation like this. I cannot think of a better place for us to have a more impactful conversation like this. So thank you, Leo Africa, and long may this continue. And to the participants, I want to thank you for taking the time. Thank you for listening to us this morning. It is my hope and prayer that you walk out of here with something. Find, even if it's one thing that touches you or that speaks to you, take that and go do something about it. It's not enough for you to hear it. It's important that it causes you to act and make a difference regardless of where you are. So part of the preparation for this conversation was a question that I asked myself, and I always reflect on why we do this sort of thing. I mean, as a banker, I should be doing something else. I should be counting money somewhere. I should be lending money to somebody. But there's a reason why we do this. And today, before we do anything else, I want to start by that reason. Why here today? Why do we as Stanbic choose purposefully to be here? And that answer is very simple, because our very purpose resonates and is fully aligned to what Leo Africa is doing. And we're not only are we aligned in purpose, we're aligned on focus on the youth, we're aligned in ethos, we're aligned in the very objective or the very answer that Leo Africa seeks to the very question that Leo Africa seeks to answer. And that question is a very clear one, that the youth, this is a continent for the youth, this is a time for the youth. So how do we of the youth? What do we need to do to create an environment where our youth not only survive but thrive, and where the full potential of every African youth is met, and where we empower those youth to be able to do that? And also to remind ourselves, and the reason why we're really, really keen to commit and support Leo Africa and to partner with them is because of that singular mentality that, friends, there is no Calvary coming. Only we as the Africans can solve our problems. Only we as the youth who are going to inherit this continent can start to work towards solving those problems, not just for ourselves, but for our children and the future generations to come. So I think the first order of business is to recommit Stanbic to Leo Africa. Our partnership grow from strength to strength, and we will continue to work with you in the near future. In the next few years, we commit to working with you and driving real tangible change, not just in Uganda, the continent. I thought I'd make that point first before we go into the crisis. Now, about the crisis. I mean, this has been the single largest impact, especially economically, but also health-wise, since the Great Depression in 1929. It started late 29. We always call it in the 30s, but it actually started in 1929. And I cannot think of, there's no historical parallel that you can draw with what we're going through today. There is no place where you can go back in the pages of history to get the world and frame it the way it is today. And therefore, this unique and unprecedented challenge calls for a different kind of response. It calls for an unconventional way of thinking. It calls for an unconventional approach or an unusual approach to the problems we have. Because not only is the world changing at an exponential rate, it's also changing in ways we never imagined before. It's changing in areas we never thought would change. And it's asking us questions that until now, we've never had to ponder. For many policymakers, the question has been different. I mean, there are two groups of people who are now having to interact that never did interact before. They're the public health experts who are advising us on matters of health and therefore life. But there's the economists who are doing the livelihood part. And these two groups of people, I doubt had never met and discussed a common approach to anything. And here we are, being forced to make very hard choices between lives and livelihood, between staying alive as a person and a business staying alive. And those questions, friends, cannot be approached with conventional wisdom. And therefore, we must search deep within ourselves and we must join hands, not literally, but you know what I mean? We must join hands and collaborate in functions to this. For me, the crisis has been many things. First and foremost, it's been a leveler in the human experience and has brought to the fore that which we always know, that as human beings across the entire globe, we have far more that unites us and separates us. Never you mind color, gender, race, tribe, but as a human race, there's far more that brings us together. And nothing like COVID to remind us of that fact. I mean, everywhere in the world, brown, yellow, black, white, green, everybody has a COVID issue to respond to. Everybody has a COVID concern. Yeah. So for me, that is one of the biggest things that it has done. It has done and has reminded me of in my approach that we are first and foremost all human beings, and therefore issues that separate us should be looked at a different lens than those that as opposed to things that unite us. And we must amplify that which unites us and work together to solve our problems. But also, it has been a catalyst for something else, which is the inequality gap. That those of us who are worse off before, thanks to COVID, have gotten even worse. Those who are in a lower income segments, those who are in a vulnerable groups have gotten worse because remember they had little to start with. Yeah, and therefore we have a duty. And as a youth of this continent and those who are listening to us, we tend to remain in our cocoons. I mean, there are people you went to school with, you have your crowd, you have your peeps, you have your WhatsApp groups, and that's where you remain. And that's where your thinking remains. That's where your frame of reference and your perspective is formed by that. And I want to encourage you today to step out of that. Find somebody you haven't interacted before. Find somebody who has a different story, who has a different background, who has a different perspective, because therein is a lesson. And don't discount them. They have a lot to say. They have a lot to give. They have dreams just like you do. They may not speak English, but they have dreams. They have aspirations. They have ideas. And we cannot grow as a nation if we continue separating the elites and those who are not, because we can only win when we work together. So I thought that was very, very important. So COVID has been this really singular impact on all of humanity and should be a point of inflection for all of us to stop. I mean, many of us have had to stop and we're confined to our houses. Reflect, reimagine, rethink what the world can or should be in a different area, in a different way. And how do we, I think Winston Churchill put it very well when he said, never let a good crisis go to waste. This frames in all its intensity, in all its scariness, and it's all its very ambiguous, I mean, when does it end? Where did it start? Who has it? Who doesn't? You know, all of that is an opportunity for us to rethink and reimagine a new world. A world that is fairer, a world where change is the order of day. I mean, if you ask me, one of the biggest things that have come out of COVID for me, it has been my change quotient. Already, I was always good at change, but now, thanks to COVID, I mean, if you tell me tomorrow to turn left, I'm going to go left. If you tell me you're going to work in the car, I'll work in the car. If you tell me, you know, so that, and that has been many for us as an organization. It's one of the things that has really, really been up. So it's one of the things that if you haven't already, if you're still clinging to the past, if you're still thinking, oh, but we always did this in this way, your change quotient, thanks to COVID, has gone up, and we should do that. The other one is the power of collaboration. Never before have I witnessed a level of collaboration. Almost every sphere of the world, every sphere of life, be it health, the doctors are talking at a continent, you know, across the globe, home, anywhere. And I'll give an example that I live and breathe every day in banking. Since the pandemic started, we as a Uganda Bankers Association have collaborated on so many things. And the thing that we saw, this is my competitive advantage. In your own little world, you can only do so much. But when you open up and when you collaborate with other people, the value is multiplied 10 times over. So as I come to the end, I want to talk of my opening remarks. I want to take away 3 things. One is that every single one of us, first of all, this is a defining crisis of our time. Every generation has that one question they're called upon to answer. Ours is in this COVID environment. Because think about it, even if the vaccine were to come, how soon, where will it go? When does it get to you? When does it get to the last Ugandan? It's going to take us some time. So the defining question of our time is, how do we rise up out of this? How do we get out of COVID? And how do we build a new world? A world of where potential, everyone's potential is tapped into. A world where we believe in the dreams. I think you will have seen as Stanbic, halfway through, we always had our brand promise as moving forward. And when the future became a bit hazy, so moving to where? Moving forward to what? Because I mean, we went through that. Our future was cancelled. The future as we knew it, as we imagined it, was cancelled. Not just for us as a bank, for our customers, for everybody. I mean, you woke up in the morning, and in January, we had our strategic plan. We knew what we're going to do. We knew how many loans we'd give out, to whom, in what manner. And all of a sudden, all of that was cancelled. So we took time in March and April to mourn that cancelled future. But also in there, we came up with a new one. And our brand promise, say, you know what, because people moving forward is not quite clear anymore, we decided to change it and tap into something else, something more powerful, which is belief. And you will have seen our brand promise. Believe firmly wherever you are that it can be. We believe in visions, we believe in dreams, we believe in hope. We believe in a singular hope for this continent, that life today can be better tomorrow. That where you are today does not define your future. That whatever you find yourself going through, there's a better tomorrow if we can start to work on it today. Yeah. So that singular belief that we can do better as a country, as a continent, is what keeps us going. And as I close my opening remarks, I want to invite everybody that wherever you are, it doesn't matter how small your platform is, it doesn't matter how few your resources are, you can and should make a difference. So as a direct result of this conference, what should go do something? That little dream you've been nurturing, that thing that you've been afraid to tell people about because you think they'll laugh at you, or it'll be too small, or it'll be too radical, it'll be too different. Go ahead and do it. Because as a continent, we are better off when we try. We're better off when we work together. We're better off when we believe first in ourselves and the dreams of those around us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I don't know how they give standing ovations on webinars like this, but I a standing ovation because it was really powerful and moving. And I think that for me, it's when the pandemic happened first, there are many questions down the list, but one of them was, how much do I have in my bank to last me at the end of, say, this pandemic? It's interesting to know that even the bank was worried about what can we do moving forward. So how, as a bank leader, how did the pandemic affect you immediately it hit? Because I know that April and May were not the very best, but how did it affect you immediately?
It's interesting. That's a very interesting question. And for me as a leader, I've always my heart. The brain follows quickly after, but first it's my heart. And what I did, and I'll speak about my personal experience, but it also extends to the entire leadership team in Stanbic. We led with empathy. We continue to lead with empathy. And that's the first part. That's never you mind the P&L. Are the people okay? So we stopped and paused and just made sure that every single person who's in our care and their families are first of all safe, and that they're taken care of, and that they have everything they need to be able to function at home properly. For our lower junior staff, we had to give dry rations, we had to give transport, just to make sure that welfare. So we led with, before anything else, first was welfare. Are the people okay? Are they being taken care of? And when I say okay, it extends beyond the physical needs. I mean, you've eaten, you've drank, but there's a big part that we as Africans never talk about, which is mental health. Did you know that there is no Luganda word for depression? I can't find it.
Yeah, my Luganda is not the best. No, I don't think there is.
Good luck in Runyankole, if you can find. But these are real things. Even anxiety, uncertainty. We don't really pay attention to these things, but they're real, and they affect people. So back to your question, we led with empathy first, making sure that our staff are all right, both physically and mentally, dealing if I come to work, I'm going to die. Yeah. So dealing fear with facts, providing them with the information they needed to make the choices they needed. You'll know that when I walked in here, the first thing was, does everybody have a mask?
A mask.
And that continues to be everywhere we go. Sanitizer, and just to deal fear with facts. That's number one. And that was the number one. The second one was quickly followed by our customers. First of all, are they physically safe? Yeah. And if you can be, and we now know that COVID, the best way to remain safe is to remain where you are. Don't move around unless you have to. So our digital channels, we cut fees completely. Again, sustainability overriding profitability. Yeah, both for our staff and also for our customers. Remove the charges first so that you can transact digitally. Yeah. Then we say restructure the loans. We know the mall has been closed for the last 3 months. Your tenants haven't paid rent. It'd be very unfair for me to say service your bank loan. So we've done over $1 trillion in value, $1 trillion Uganda shillings of loan restructures, especially in the SME sector, and covering over 45,000 different businesses in that area. So we also took time to understand where is the problem, how can we solve it, and how can we be humane first to each other and to the customers we serve, and also partnering with the regulator to say, can we create an environment from a macroeconomic point of view that is enabling to be able to survive in these very unprecedented times.
You mentioned anxieties, and I could notice the anxiety, for example, in the statement, moving forward and then amending that to it can be the question of what's the future, what does it look like? There's many young people who have those anxieties. Some of them have been resolved already. Others are still battling through those anxieties. What kind of advice would you give to young people, young leaders particularly, who've faced the most anxiety they've had in their lifetime during this pandemic?
That's a very big question. And I doubt that there's a silver bullet for that question. There's an approach to that question. The first of which is allow yourself to mourn the future as you knew it, because what you knew it is gone. The second one is get comfortable with ambiguity. And be clear on your panic barometer, where you are. Because in the beginning, whatever you had built, almost all just went out of you, just flew out. So being able to say, okay, fine, that's gone. This is no longer possible. Let me go back to the drawing board. Gather yourself to yourself and go back to the drawing board. and rethink your business model and talk to your customers, talk to your stakeholders, which is why in my earlier address, I emphasized collaboration. There's nobody sitting somewhere with a glass bowl. There's nobody sitting alone with all the answers. When you collaborate, when you ask questions, when you just open it up and say, guys, I'm struggling with this, can I get help? You will find a lot of that. You will get a lot of ideas. And in there, you sift through. And the third one is quite important, one that I take time to talk to any youth that I find. Do the work. There is no shortcut to where you're going. There is no elevator to success at the top. You got to take the stairs. So roll up your sleeves and get down and dirty with whatever vocation, whatever it is you've chosen to do, but do the work. If it's research, do the work. If it's consultation, do the work. If it's do what you need, but do not in any way envisage a shortcut or a quick, clever way. Those who will do the work will reap most out of it. Those who consult widely and more will get most out of it. And above all, when you're done with all that, take action. Do it. Be brave. Believe and start moving. But I think that to your question, that anxiety is going to be there. All of us are anxious in one way or another. But allowing yourself to function in that agile, I'm not sure I have all the answers, but I'm going to take step 1. And then I'll stop, calibrate, and take step 2. And then take step 3. And if it's not working, it's okay to turn back or to change direction because it's not working. So that is the anxiety that the only way to deal is to accept it and to deal with it.
You mentioned something very strong on the leadership credentials, which is empathy, leading with empathy. I'm just curious to know what kind of conversations you've had with like your bank staff, away from making sure their KPIs are met. What kind of conversations have you had with them that are empathetic and questions that they're asking about the pandemic, the future, will I get a salary? Yeah.
So it's very interesting that you asked that, because one of the things that I did when I joined, I got appointed, interestingly or not uninterestingly, depending how you look at it. I just look at it as interestingly, because I'll have a really cool story to tell for many years to come. Hey? So I got appointed 1st of March, and I came physically into the role on the 17th of March. And the first week of April, I called our first town hall. These are some of the advantages of the pandemic, or the good things coming out of the pandemic. In the past, if all of our 1,700 staff had to congregate in the same place, work would stop at 12 o'clock on a Friday. We would have the entire country shipping people in. Yeah. Our meetings were held in Nambole or some other big field, because you couldn't fit anywhere. So it was such a big operation to get everybody in the same room to have a conversation. But now with the new tools, in the second week of April, I remember we had our first town hall, and all of 1,500 people tuned in for that call. It was the first of its kind that we had as a Uganda team. Yeah, and it was such a big and powerful time for us to get together. First of all, to just get together. I mean, people had been confined to their homes for the longest time, for some of them. I mean, they were seeing their partners for the longest time. So just to get together, to say we are together, we are with you, we are standing with you. But also what was important for me in this period is a chance for me to show my vulnerability. And because I firmly believe that there is power in being vulnerable. And in my first address, I told my staff that I am as scared as you are. I don't have the answers as well, but I firmly believe that together we can work towards a solution. And that I'm here, and I made myself accessible for all hours, day and night, to say whatever you need, we can talk. And the same permeated through the entire organization. And also kindness. We're never kind to each other. And in this period, you don't know what the person's going through. You don't know you don't even know if they had dinner. But you stop in the morning and say, good morning, how are you? And really mean it, and genuinely mean it. It's such a big thing. And as a bank, we embody that spirit, that empathy before anything else. Because after all, long before the KPI or anything else, we are human first. Yeah, and we really, really carry that along. So my first order of business was to just really open the kimono and say, guys, I am with you, and I am as scared as you are, I'm as anxious as you are, but let's work together to find a solution. And that really broke barriers, because it opened up The second part, which was equally important, is remained close to our staff. In this period, we've had 3 surveys we always have an annual survey for staff. We've done 3. In April, we weren't sure what people were doing. So it's okay, fine. Tell us how you are, survey. Are you okay? What do you need? And we came up with all sorts of things. Power, is your power getting cut off? You can't work from home. Can you get a generator loan or whatever? So we came up with things that are really personal to people. And we had our pulse on that. The second one was also to solution for our customers. Say, guys, the customers are going through a really difficult time. Yeah. Can we now, because you can't give what you don't have. Exactly. Yeah. So if you're not feeling good about yourself, you can't
make others feel good.
You cannot. Yeah. So if our staff are not feeling good, they cannot make the customers feel good. So we took care of our staff, and they in turn continue to take care of our customers. And that has really, really worked out very well for us. As the bottom line will no doubt demonstrate at the end of the year. Because those things are related. The brand is a derivative of what you put in. The manner in which your customers are treated is directly related or proportionally to the manner in which your staff are treated. So those 3 in my mind follow, and you will see the results coming through.
Yeah, we have a panel that we're going to engage, but I'm going to ask you a question that's not very traditional. Everyone looks at you as a P&L, biggest commercial bank, but when you are coming to work in the morning and when you're going back home, what kind of music are you listening to?
Oh, that's a very interesting.
Because we're young people, we be on playlist all that time.
I used to be young once. I can't say I am anymore, but I'm a 90s girl. So it's always going to be soul, it's going to be R&B. I mean, this morning was Aretha. A rose is still a rose. And it was on full blast and I enjoyed myself. But over and above that, if it's not anything soul, I'm also growing to love Ugandan music. I mean, Nava Gray, Rema, Juliana, I absolutely enjoy and sing along all the way. So
that's such an impressive playlist. So we just have some people who've joined us. We have a panel of, we have Ralph, we have Lucy Mbabazi with us, we have Linda Mwaura with us. We also have Mohammed Okash, who was the valedictorian for the class. He's joining us from Mogadishu. I want to start with Ralph. You just had a keynote address. And I don't want to betray your profile, but I know that you work with the central bank, so definitely you are taking intent notes on this one. But just tell us your own thoughts about the keynote address and how you've handled the crisis.
All right, thanks everyone. And it was good hearing you speak. As Raymond said, I work for your regulator, but I'll try to be kind on your keynote address. So one of the key takeaways for me was the leading with empathy. We don't see much of that, both in the public and the private sector. The fact that you care even about whether your employees are doing well mentally just speaks to what kind of organization you are or what you want to be. You have seen instances in which people are still required to go to work, even the current situation in the country, the unrest in town, but you have bosses who will be saying, where you want you on your desk. If this person couldn't even get to work or didn't even have the energy to get to work. So leading with empathy is a very, very key tenet of leadership, even going forward. The next one is looking at partnerships and collaboration. I'd like to laud IITE and Stanbic and most members of the financial sector who have tried to work as much as possible together. Earlier on this week, there was an interesting conversation on CNBC speaking about the role of public-private partnerships going forward after this crisis. And one of my takeaways from that was the fact that government is able to provide a lot more services to people without using necessarily the large amount of resources that they could have if they were doing it on their own. So enable for us to move forward beyond the crisis, we need to look into collaborations. This could be financial collaborations. This could even just be service collaborations. You have initiatives like Rocket Health and you have transport services like Safe Border, who could actually, this is just a thought, could push their services to a much larger population. And I think my final takeaway from what was a brilliant keynote address was about stopping to reflect, reimagine, and rethink the way in which we work. This is not only in digital space, this is not only in how you relate with your employees, but look at it from the public perspective, the public service perspective, in that if we actually realize how much money the government has saved on travel, both foreign and domestic in this time, this money could be allocated somewhere else. And as Raymond said, I can't betray my vocation at the moment, but it is important that we look into finding a balance between decreasing expenditure while putting in place all these policies that will enable the government give and allocate resources where they are most needed. At the moment, you're looking at the health sector. It doesn't do anyone any good to have a beautifully built hospital when there are no doctors in it, where you have wonderful roads, but there are no people traveling on them. We need to have human-centered public policy going forward with the citizenry and their rights and well-being at the key center of everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ralph. Those are very kind remarks for a regulator. But I want to pick on Okash now. I was at the day you became valedictorian for your class. I attended that segment. I had your speech. It was a very hopeful speech. You were thinking about the future and how it was for the taking for young people. But lo and behold, we now have to mourn that future and start to work with ambiguities like Anne just told us. What do you take from this keynote address?
Well, very thank you, Raymond, and the keynote speaker, Madam Speaker. It was very interesting and moving speech. Basically, I really enjoyed it, and it was very inspiring, especially for young leaders, for young emerging leaders like us. I picked a few things. One, there's no shortcut for success, for doing amazing things. So just move out and do whatever you are thinking is very good for the society. As a young leaders, we have what we wish to do for our people. We are doing our small things for making our continent, our countries, our communities better. So there's no shortcut and there's no elevator for doing those things. So we need to move out our comfort zone and do whatever we are capable. Another interesting point which I picked out is we have our own small circles which we usually keep in touch, which we usually take care of, which we usually give them a support. But there are others who are in need for support. There are others whom you have never interacted, which are in need for support and assistance. So go out from your small circle and keep in touch with anyone or someone whom you have never interacted, whom you think may be with your own community or within the continent, with anywhere in the world. So that's a very interesting point. It shows an empathy. It shows an leadership. It shows an inclusive leadership. Those are the pure values that our current leaders are missing out today. We need a leadership based on values, a leadership based on human-centered public policy, as Ralph said, which delivers really an input and a result-oriented. Finally, a last key point which I picked from the keynote speaker was leading with empathy. I think the word empathy has been rarely applied in our leadership practice in our home countries, especially in Africa. I think we need leaders who lead from the point of their citizens, especially for those who are in 80%, those who are below, those who are living in poverty line, those who have been affected by inequalities, those who have been affected by violences, their voice have never been amplified or never been heard or never been given space in decision-making platforms. We need leaders who can move out from their comfort zone, who can move out from their luxury mansions and can go into to the people, to the villages, where they can observe what the people are demanding for and can reflect those things into actual sense, into actual policy, public policy priorities, and deliver a change. I think those are the main three things which I picked up from the speech. But in general, it was really moving. It's a speech where every young person would love to watch and watch. I hope Leo has been recording this, and we shall watch and reflect over time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Okash. Definitely, we are recording that conversation. One thing that I picked up from the speech was when Anne talked about her team being able to meet all of them, 1,500, over a small thing called the internet, using technology. And the layoff really large. This particular conversation is going on in almost 38 different countries. Okash just spoke to us from Mogadishu, and who is in Nakuru. That's really the extremes, to also tell us what she thinks about the keynote address. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Raymond. Thank you so much. I appreciate Anne's great leadership, and it's quite touching that she began from working with her employees and ensuring those that are junior employees have something to eat. She basically started from home, where that is where we should start before we go out and move out and be of impact to others. And some of the key things that I noted from her speech is leadership and empathy. As a leader, you have to lead with empathy, and clearly that really came out well in her speech. And another thing I noted is when she mentioned about taking small steps, no matter how small people think your dream is, no matter how big, no matter how ambiguous they may think your dream is, but taking that first step, and even in the middle of a crisis, we know that there are innovations and businesses that have been started in the middle of this crisis, and they are thriving. And I took that point where she said that take the step, begin, be able to reflect, and finally be able to implement so that you can work on that small and big dream, and also so that you can be of change to yourself, the community, and even to the globe. And one other thing is I like the part that she kept acknowledging that the future is youthful. And right now, during this period, we have seen many young people coming out, doing things, talking about their mental health, talking about issues that they are facing on the internet. And all these things have really been encouraging to people far and wide across the globe. And finally, I think this is an eye-opener that the future is in technology. The crisis has taught us that we need to be able to adapt to technology. I believe last year, someone came and told us that we're going to be having this kind of meeting with over around 38 countries represented. Nobody would have thought that it would have been possible to do it virtually. But the crisis has also taught us that we need to start embracing technology. And yeah, I think those are my key points that I noted from the keynote speech. Thank you so much, Raymond.
Thank you so much, Linda, for that. Of course, when I got into this network, one of the people that always spoke very intently about the Africa that we want is Lucy Mbabazi. And she kept telling us, you know, you can't Africa you want. Now, Lucy, I don't know that if the Africa I want is the one that's in a pandemic, but lo and behold, we have it. One of the things has been, how do we navigate ourselves away from this crisis using basic leadership principles? And I'd just like you to speak to that, but also to tell us your own thoughts about what the keynote address was.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raymond. And that was brilliant. I was here clapping because first of all, women in leadership and women in leadership like Anne is really inspiring. That was fantastic. The key takeaways that you mentioned that I think about so many times is, there is no Calvary coming. It is we that have to do the work to build our continent. And I think the pandemic has been one of those great equalizers in many ways, because we all stood still, the world stood still at the same time for all of us. Rich or poor, you couldn't access what you need as you needed it. And indeed, that old normal is gone. And it was also a great accelerator for digital. And I was so happy to hear you mention how you had to really take care of your staff in order to take care of your customers. Happy staff, happy customers is essentially how society works, right? So we can't move forward unless we are all well taken care of, and to go to the heart of what matters most, which is how people are doing, is amazing. And hearing how digital made it possible for you to meet outside of a stadium and virtually, in my old job at EcoBank, over 10,000 employees also were meeting in town halls, and it was really remarkable to see that something that was so opposed before is now being embraced. The other thing which also spoke to what I love doing, which is the whole cashless Africa business, is the removal of fees for, I don't know if that was a move by the bank or it was mandated by Ralph, but it's something that we saw a lot of during the pandemic. And we always think about digitization in a way that it has to be meaningful for people, and it has to be meaningful in such a way that it is better than cash. So the biggest blockage to digitizing our economies is the cost of banking, the cost of transacting, and to see financial players actively remove those barriers was inspiring. Although during the pandemic, a lot of those fees were waived. Now we're seeing a return of those fees. But yeah, the Africa we want is one where we have to do the work, like the board chairman of Leo says, to do the work of building the Africa that we have right now. The pandemic amplified the need for us to digitize our economies. This morning I was reading about the Kenya governor talking about how there needs to be more investment in connectivity, more investment in digitization in order to really help us recover quickly, and also include more people into the economy. For Africa, the pandemic amplified, when you look, majority of us are working in the informal sector, hand to mouth, wages are not digitized. When the pandemic came, many of us were stranded as a result of that, because we were typically used to lining up for cash. Now we are stranded, there is lockdown, and we can't get cash. So it really amplified the need for the continent to digitize our economies by digitizing wages, digitizing the way we do business. Shops were closed, supermarkets were closed, markets where majority of us transact were closed. So if we swiftly digitize, which is an opportunity for our young leaders, our emerging leaders, to innovate around how do we bring more people online, how do we design solutions that are meaningful for everybody, for that lady who sells fruits and vegetables alongside the road or in the market. Do your tools serve them? For those who are in the financial sector, is banking attractive enough, or whatever financial services that we are providing? Are they convenient? Are they easy to understand? Are they affordable? As it is right now, as I look from a Rwanda vantage point, where I took some time to I had an intern look at the pricing of banking and mobile money and everything in the context of moving everyone online. And it's really expensive. Banking is expensive, mobile money is expensive. So for us to digitize our economies and get people to move away from cash, it's going to take designing solutions that are convenient and cost effective in such a way that it's better than cash. The other thing, speaking to what Anne mentioned around, there is no cavalry coming. Donors whom we typically depend on are looking within because they have their own problems. But we have so much cash in circulation that if we digitized could make a difference in developing our economy. So digitization is directly linked to resource mobilization. So all the monies in the economy, whether it is my 500 francs or someone's millions of francs, if they're all in our national treasury, I'm sure Anne and Ralph would love this. If all these monies are put together and in our treasuries, then we don't have to depend so much on, which I hope we can in the Africa that we want, get away from needing donor aid, because we do have those resources here. We just need to congregate them and bring them into financial institutions and make sure that everybody has equal access to financial services and tools in such a way that we can equally participate meaningfully in building the Africa that we want. So I was so touched by the speech, and it spoke so much to what I saw COVID as I sat in my house. It was a great equalizer. All of us were stranded at the same time, stopped at the same time, and also an accelerator on why we really need to digitize everything from wages of everybody, the way that we do business, we need to get online, logistics, everything has got to be done. And as we do that, I believe that Africa can stand on our own feet with the resources that we have. We can borrow locally from Stanbic Bank instead of going to an international bank to borrow. These are all things that we can do when we digitize. And I really look forward to hopefully seeing more of that work done, especially in my new role at the Better Than Cash Alliance. So thank you so much. That's it, Raymond, for now.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Those are very, very, very strong points that you've made. And I want now to return to Anne, because we'll have a few minutes before we close out. Therein, in the pandemic, came an opportunity. The platform we're using, Zoom, just skyrocketed, even listed on the stock exchange. How are those to us, your clientele, in terms of digitizing the network and making access much easier?
How much time do you have? Because I have a long list of that. The first and the biggest opportunity for us as a bank was to introspect, to look within. We've always done well as Stanbic Uganda, but we have felt that we are falling short of our purpose. Our purpose, we always say, Uganda is our home, we drive her growth. And for the longest time, we've tried very hard to everything we do is in service to that purpose. However, when we sat back, and it was in this room and a couple of other rooms, and we thought about, are we really serving Ugandans, or can we do better? And the answer was very clear. There are 42 odd million Ugandans, and we only have about 500,000 accounts, only 500,000 active accounts. If I put all the numbers, it gets about 650,000 accounts. So we are not really serving all the Ugandans, at least in the current state. So we took it upon ourselves during this period to design and roll out something for the mass market. And when Lucy talks about digitization, I am singing and applauding, because she is right on the money. Yeah, because in the past, for us as an institution, it was not economically viable to open the door and serve all 42 million, because everybody then had to come to the bank. And it was never really, it was never workable. And I would have to charge the fees. So it was never really the solution. So we've designed a product, and you will have, I don't know if you saw us last week launch our EERF, Enterprise Economic Restart Fund. And in here, in the Restart Fund, we are doing we are really taking financial inclusion and putting the word meaningful financial inclusion. And when we say meaningful financial inclusion, we mean three things. We mean that we will provide financing at an affordable rate. Lucy put it so beautifully. It'll be affordable. It'll be and the third, in a language that the customers understand. Yeah. And those three things are where single time you get much controversial as money and put them in a different language, you're just adding, you're just making it difficult for everybody. Yeah. So we're doing this again using collaboration. So we're partnering with all the circles across the country, and we're going to do three things for them. One, we'll provide funding for them, which is at a lower rate than you get ordinarily. The second is we're digitizing them so that the circle itself has a clear record of how many customers do I have, how many savers, how many borrowers. Third, and equally important, the digitization journey continues on the market stall, to the border guy, to everybody who's part of this economic activity. As long as you are arranging yourselves in an economic activity under a circle, you will then get what we're calling our wallet, where the circle can disperse funding into your wallet. And when you're repaying, you're paying from your wallet into the circle. So the point is there cash involved, but also the convenience of the fact that you never where you are to continue to serve. And the third and equally important, think about the way we're set up. Usually circles operate on market days. The market day is on Wednesday. Yeah. So you got to collect your savings until Wednesday. And then you got to trek. It's a long distance. You walk to where the circle is, and for you to either borrow or deposit. So can you imagine being able to do this without having to come? But also you start to have a financial record in your little wallet, in this little shop that you run. You start to have, how much did I borrow? How much did I lend? Yeah, at what rate? How much is my business worth? And our aim really is to have, we're calling it a financial passport. Because when you have a record, you can then stand on your 2 feet and get access to financing anywhere. As bankers, our lending decision is governed by two things. One, ability to pay. Two, willingness to pay. So, and your ability to pay is always a function of a historical record. And for many of our people in the lower end of the pyramid, there was never a record. Yeah. So it was very difficult to say, I mean, Raymond, how do I know what you can know, And we were always asking them of things that were not only unfair, but also unachievable. I mean, bring your bank statement. I don't have a bank statement. Bring your electricity bill. Bring, there's no power in my house. So the way we were set up was not set up to win and was not set up to serve that market. But thanks to COVID, and that segment is very controversial, but indeed it made us think differently to say, how do we serve this particular sector? And how do we serve them in a manner they understand? And how do we bring it closer in a circle with your neighbors, with people you know and can work with? And that is where the willingness to pay is also taken care of. I mean, this is you can't leave the village. Where are you going to go? So in your circle. But what we're also doing is we are bringing training into this. So we're not just throwing money at the problem. If you're organized around coffee farming, we are bringing a coffee farming expert into that. If you're organized around border, we're saying, come, let's bring a safety expert or border, whatever. And the power of collaboration is going to come alive in this new endeavor. So thank you, Lucy, for bringing up that point. And we all have a duty to make things different. Now, Stanbic has come up with this. You start something else. Come and tell us that I have organized the following group of people. We're doing this and this. I want to join the circle proposition. Let us collaborate. Let us do things. Like I said, if you walk out of this 3-day conference with just one little idea that is going to impact just the 10 people around you, just start there. If your nucleus of influence is just the people that 10 around you, start there. And and move into a different direction. But Lucy put it so very well. Digitization is going to make a difference. And for us as youth, I can't say that anymore about myself, but for you as youth,
we accept you.
an honorary youth, yeah. We are digital natives, so we are playing to our strength. Yeah, this is something that we know how to do. It is not as foreign as all the other things that are being called upon us. I mean, you finish your degree and they ask you for experience. You don't have it, yeah, but you know digital stuff. You're digitally savvy, and therefore you can play to that strength, because the world for a digital economy has never been better than it is now, and we have to start. And there's so many opportunities in everything that you can think of. There's no facet of life that can't be digitized. Whether it's agriculture, whether it's health, whether it's education, there's so many things you can do. So get out there and do that.
And very finally, what set of values does one need to go through this pandemic? It's a tricky time.
Yes, it is.
And one of the things that you really need is a grounded set of values, because everything else changes, but your value system then propels you forward.
It must never change. And you ask a very good question, because there's a deficiency of values for us. Especially in our leadership sector, and that permeates through, whether it's business, politics, or anywhere else. So even when the going is hard, even when you can justify it to yourself, I have a very good reason for taking we are in COVID, things are hard. This is the time to hold on to your integrity, because there's nothing that can replace it. And once gone, there is nothing that can bring it back. So integrity is by far, for me, the single biggest thing. That remain honest in the work you do. Whether it's inconvenient, whether it doesn't work anymore, just stand firm, and you will be remembered for serving with diligence and integrity and honesty. I cannot overemphasize that. It's such a rare trait that when you have it, automatically you go into a different category of people. Yeah. So that's number one. The second one is, whatever you do, be anchored in purpose. If you don't know where you're going, any road can lead you there. So the issue about purpose and clarity of that purpose and anchoring everything you do to that purpose is also such a big one, that we must be purpose-driven. We must be purpose-driven. The third, and equally important, it applies to me and it served me well over the years. When you seek to help others, when you seek to solve for others, when you look outward with a giving mentality, as opposed to my things for me, by me, you expand your universe infinitely. So think outwardly, think generously, think with the view of giving, as opposed to collecting and receiving. You will go places very well.
Thank you so much. There's a panelist who was supposed to have joined us, Fiona Mbabazi. I'm told she's now with us. I just want to give her a chance, because she listened into the keynote address, and she's joining us from Rwanda. I told you we're really across the globe. So I want Fiona to just give us a few of her remarks on the keynote address, and then we can close.
Thank you, Raymond. Yeah, I've been following up. I'm sorry, my internet is a bit messed up, but yes, I've been following up. Thank you very much, Anne, for the keynote. I mean, you spoke about so many things that we can either get comfortable on, and I think what my takeaway was, we must get comfortable in the new normal, you know? And for me, my takeaway is being present in whatever has come, it has come. Let's just accept it. But how do we move with it? You know, how do we think? How do we reimagine the future? How do we accept, you know, what's already happening on ground? I think the other thing for me was about leading with empathy, which a few leaders have tried, others are still trying, you know? Yeah, so that was just my takeaway, Raymond, as I listened in, and just what she just touched on, you know, the values, which is also the core of, you know, for us fellows at the Leo African Institute, you know, servant leadership. It's about giving back to the community. It's not just about you. It's about your neighbor, your community. What are you doing to see that, it's not only you living that life that you're trying to live, but also giving back in just the most minimal way that you can. And yeah, hopefully we get the Africa that we want. Thank you, Raymond.
Thank you so much, Fiona. And of course, thank you so much to all our panelists, Mohammed Okash, who joined us from Mogadishu, Linda Mwaura, who joined us from Nakuru, Ellis Ralph, who joins us from Entebbe. That's not Kampala, that's another district altogether. And Lucy Mbabazi, who joined us from Rwanda in Kigali. And also a great thank you to all our partners, our biggest partners right with us here at Stanbic Bank. We're completely grateful for this partnership and being able to bring to life this very wonderful idea of the annual leaders gathering. I can hear some of them clapping in the room. We can hear them. Thank you so much to the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Foundation for also enabling the Leadership Forum, but also enabling the Annual Leaders Gathering. Thank you so much to the Martinality Foundation, and thank you so much to the Innovation Village, who've been our partner. We listen to a poem by Nzensuruga. So let's have ourselves some poetry.
My name is Subuga Mohammed. I'm a Rwanda writer and performance poet. My stage name is Nze. I'm very, very honored to be part of the ALG 2020, and I'm here to perform for you some poetry. My first piece is called Kuminemu Nechitundu, which loosely translates to 530. It's a poem that talks about the different hardships a student or a learner goes through from the time they wake up in the morning to the time they go back home or to the dormitory in the evening. It also briefly talks about the different things these kids are supposed to be doing during holidays and what the school system wants them to be doing. So I hope you enjoy that poem. Thank you. Kumi n'emu n'ekitundu. Emmambi ate nasala. Naye emmotoka z'amasomero wabweru zeetala. 11 n'ekitundu. Obunyonyi tebunnazuukuka naye owa P1 yatunula. 11 n'ekitundu. Enkoko tennakookolima naye abatogo bazuukuse. Omuzadde n'omuyizi beeyisiŋŋanya nga baabigwo. Kano kaseera kakanaayo kyani, kaseera kaakayisanyo. Amazzi ga caayi agookya mu kikopo, emigaati emisiige n'ebboto y'obutunda bitegekeddwa, ensawo y'ebitabo yasuze wansi wa kitanda, yunifoomu teyakaze naye ngolole. Oyagala toyagala ojja kugyambala. Engatta akagulu akamu tekalabika, eddagala ly'amannyo lyaweddewo, ebizigo byaweddewo, akasanirizo kaabuze. 11 n'ekitundu. Emmotoka tekyakulinze. Omwana vaani emulese. Amasomero oluvannyuma boodabooda erabika. Vuga nnyo ssebo tuli leeti. Buli Mande bakola test. Vuga nnyo ssebo tuli leeti. Geeti y'essomero mugiyitako kapaalo. Ekibiina kirimu abaana 13 abasigadde tebannatuuka. Kyokka ekibuuzo kiyiseeko eddakiika 3. Ensoma y'ennaku zino. Omuzadde n'omuyizi tewakyali njawulo. Si wa nursery oba primary. Abava ewaka n'ab'ekisulo tewakyali njawulo. Eyo ensoma y'ennaku zino. Olweggulo babata ne homework. Okwo kw'ossa ababa tebamalirizzaayo class work. So nga mulimu bambi abalina okuddayo waka bakole housework. Ebintu byafuuka bya ssekinnoomu. Tekyalina bya teamwork. Abaana basoma nnyo. Kyokka abategeera bo batono nnyo. Abasomesa bagamba abaana ewaka basiiba bazannya. Kyokka be bamu abatugamba mbu work without play makes Jack a dull boy. Kuno kw'ossa okusoma holiday ne holiday package. Naye wadde okusoma kulungi naye n'okuwummula kulungi nnyo. Wadde abaana basoma naye ddala kiki ekikeeza omwana owa nursery P1 essaawa 11 n'ekitundu ez'okumakya. wadde obutasoma buluma bukulu naye ndaba n'ensoma ennaku zino egenda eggwamu amakulu kale wadde nazze kwogera naye saze kusaba kalulu. Welcome back from Kuminemu n'ekitundu. Now, this second poem is called Agali Awamu. Agali Awamu is a Luganda word that loosely translates to people or things coming together to do something which can't be achieved when you're only one. And it is a poem about climate. Since climate crisis is one of the themes, I thought, why not? So I dropped in Agali Awamu. It basically talks about how we humans have decided to destroy our beautiful world by doing all the various things that we do that we know actually destroy the environment. However, as the poem ends, I also suggest a few things we can as well do to maintain our still beautiful environment. I hope you like it. Thank you. Bagamba amazzi bwe bulamu nga tosola bwayise era kitta kimanyidde ennyanja etta muvubi. Abaffe ennyanja nga tennatutta ffe tugenda okugisaanyaawo. Ennyanja enaatutta etya nga mu yo ebikebe obucupa n'obuveera mwe tubisuula. Ennyanja enaatutta etya nga amakolero ebicaafu mwe gayiwa. Ennyanja enaatutta etya nga tugiyiwamu ttaka n'amayinja kugizimbamu. Ewaffe obuveera bwa mugaso. Ewaffe obuveera bwa mugaso. Ab'oku kibuga babukozesa okuboobeza ettooke endagala za bbula. Enkuba bw'ekusanga teweetaaga manvuuli ng'olina akaveera. Abatunda empuuta buwunga babukozesa okusibamu ebyokulya. Wali osambe ku kapiira akakoleddwamu kaveera. Supattere ne tubeless toyoya. Newankubadde kakola bino byonna, akaveera obulabe kajjudde entoko. Bwe kalegama amazzi tegayita. Omukka gwako nga kwokyeddwa tabbu njereere. Yitako mu myala olabe oba agiyingiddemu obuveera amazzi gatambula. Weebuuza twaba ki? Laba tuli ku ttabi lye tutuddeko ate lye tutema. Ensiko tugikumyeko omuliro tugobe ebisolo tuzimbe eggoloofa n'amakolero. Ensiko tuzikumyeko omuliro tufune ettaka tusimbe ebikajjo n'emmwanyi. Ebibira tubisaanyizzaawo tufune amanda n'amasannyalaze. Laba tusula mu mategula, ebinyonyi bisula ku waya z'amasannyalaze. Amazzi gakulukutira gye gaali gakulukutidde. Awaali entobazi wayimiriddewo makolero, masomero na butale. Teweewuunya lwaki bw'etonnya gakulukutira mu ndibota za ngoye. Teweewuunya lwaki bw'etonnya etwala mayumba, masomero n'amamotoka. Omusana bwe gwaka mu nnimiro, gwaka mu buwompo bwaffe, gutuuka ne mu nsawo. Enkuba yatonnyanga ne twesunga okubaza. Kati bw'etonnya bayiramu n'abantu. Enkulaakulana tugyetaaga naye n'omukka tugwetaaga. Amanda tugeetaaga naye n'emiti tugyetaaga naye n'ebibira tubyetaaga okusengejja omukka gwe tussa. Amakolero tugeetaaga naye n'entobazi tuzeetaaga okusengejja amazzi. Tuleme kusaanyaawo butonde ng'abali mu mpaka. Akaveera okukasuula mu mwala akasimbyemu ekijanjaalo asinga. W'otemye omuvule simbawo ffene n'omutuba. Muddo ojja kulya omuwula gwa ffene nga n'embuzi bwe woomera ebikoola by'omutuba. Kye kiseera nze naawe tulwanirire obutonde. Kye kiseera nze naawe tulwanirire obutonde. Essaawa y'eno. tusitukire wamu anti agali awamu. Hey, I'm back. Now, this is the third and last poem from me to you for the day. And this is a love poem. This poem is called To Me. Now, in this poem, the character is confessing their feelings for this beautiful lady or beautiful girl. And it is a poem that uses simple but relatable metaphors. And it's basically a poem that talks about different things. The character employs different things, different themes of life to suggest and express their feelings for this particular kind of person they are talking to. I love it. I hope you will love it too. Thank you very much.
Mukulu, tukulinze.
Kodi avenu. Nze gwe watwala obwongo n'obusigaza nange ne sifaayo kubukima. Nze enjuba efubutuka ku kkono neefundikira ku dde y'omutima gwo. Nze omugenyi atazunza njuki obanga nze enjuki zize kulambula ggwe omubisi gwange. Nze musajja yakulumyanga kasikonda nange nali siiza kukyebeera. Nze malayika yakusesanga ng'oli muwere bwe navangawo n'okaaba. Nze ettaffaali eribula ku nnyumba y'obulungi bwo. Nze kikonyogo bankasuka kulaalira nalaalira mu mutima gwo. Omulungi ataliiko kamugu oli kika kya mmere ezaamu amaanyi, lumonde, akawunga ne muwogo. Nze nkwesunga nga nnyimba za mukwano, ennyonta y'okukwatako nnyingi nnyo, oluusi okunywegera tekumala. Nze nafuuka ssinzizo okubeerawo ku nkwesunga ng'ekiweebwayo. Nze kajirita akasala becca njagala leero ebyenkya binaaba byankya. Nze siri kisenge naye wambunangako, njagala nkwagale nga sina nagwe neebuuzizaako, kubanga buli lwe nkulaba nzijukira ebirooto bye nnina omuli okwagala nga bwe neeyagala, mpozi n'okulaga abanzaala. Oli kibiina kye nasinga okwagala nga nsoma. Baby, oli mirimu gye nasinga okwagala nga nkula, kulya, kuzannya n'okwebaka. Oli nnaku ze neesunganga ennyo mu ssomero, kiromu, vidi ne prom. Oli mawulire agankubyanga enduulu, teri prep, somesa taliiwo, amasannyalaze gagenze. Nze kabiriiti akakwakira mu bunnyogovu ne mu mpewo. Nze kintu, beera nambi wange. Nze kabaka, beera n'abagereka wange. Nze ssimu, beera layini yange. Nze saati, beera amapeesa gange. Nze ndi muzibe, beera amaaso gange. Kubanga gw'oli lulagala lwa ndiizi bwe lubula ku mikolo, empombo tewaba. Oli kikajjo kya ggoowa, kigonda ssaako okuwoma kuva ku kisigo paka eyo ku nnyingo esembayo. Nze musajja gwe baakugambanga ng'okula nti ku lunaku luli olifuna omwagalwa. Olunaku lwe baakugambanga lwe luno. Omusajja gwe baakugambanga ye nze.